this evening. And just want to let everybody know that we are doing that. It will be available on our website after we're done. So thank you so much for being here, everybody. We want to welcome you, and I'll turn this over this evening to Kristen Malone, my co-president.
Good evening, and welcome to our fellow members and the community of Glen Ellyn, and our speakers this evening. Thank you so much for coming. This is our first community meeting of 2021. It's really one of my favorites. I love this meeting. It's so fun to find out what's going on in Glen Ellyn. My name's Kristen Malone, and I'm one of the co-presidents of the League of Women Voters this year, along with Erica Nelson. For those of you who are new to the League of Women Voters, we are a nonpartisan organization. We encourage the informed and active participation of our citizens in government. The League does not support any candidates or endorse a candidate or a political party. We work to increase the understanding of major public policy issues and influence public policy through education and advocacy. So tonight we are meeting on the day following the unique and democratic transfer of power, the inauguration of the President of the United States. This transition comes after the attack on the United States Capitol on Wednesday, January 6th. As a league, we are very proud that Dr. Deborah Turner, the League of Women Voters from the United States president, our leader, responded to this event, reinforcing the philosophy of League. What happened today in our nation's capital is not a partisan issue. It's a democracy issue. So I'll hand it off again to my co-president, Erica, who will share some announcements. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. So our next community meeting, just to keep people informed, will be on Thursday, February 18th. Our local elections are on April 6th. If you can believe it, we have a consolidated election coming up. And that event that night on Thursday is titled Local Elections and You, Fighting Voter Apathy. And it's going to feature a panel of experts on this really timely subject matter. So we really welcome you to put that on your calendar as a save the date, and then we'll get getting more information out to you. We also want you to look for information on candidate forums in March from our voter services co-chairs, John Fasules and Bernie Lazewski. They're already obviously working on those, and we'll get that information out to you ahead of time. Please check our website, LWVGE.org, for updates. Each year on the third Monday in January, the country honors the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There are many ways to positively impact our communities, and your attendance here this evening demonstrates your interest as educated and engaged citizens. His commitment to service and his belief in equity, involvement of all citizens in their government, and democracy is a call to continue to serve, to work as partners in our community. Voter registration, voter education about the candidates running for office, and engagement with our local municipal government like this evening is the important work of League and how we can and do make a positive impact in our community. We are fortunate to welcome tonight Village Manager Mark Franz and Gary Fasules, Acting Village President, to share a State of the Village presentation. Thank you both for joining us. The presentation runs until about 7:45, and then right after that, we'll go to question and answer for about 25 minutes. We offered people a chance to post questions in advance of tonight's presentation, and we have a list of those. Karin Daly, our VP for Communications, will be the moderator with those questions, and we'll also get to as many as we can in our Q&A on the screen. What we can't get to, we will make sure that we take down and respond, send those to Village Manager Mark Franz for follow-up, and we can get those out to on our website. So Mark, I will stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours.
Excellent. And possibly, if we don't mind, why don't we start, this is brand new as of Tuesday evening. Trustee Gary Fasules is now the acting village president. So I thought maybe we'd start with him. Gary, if you don't mind kicking us off, and then we can get into the presentation.
All right, I guess I have to explain myself, who I am, and I think everyone knows me as Sean's husband. I'm a lifelong resident, as most of you know. The most important fact of being a lifelong resident was that I did meet Sean in kindergarten at Ben Franklin. I've been a trustee in the 90s, and after my term there, I I was on various committees, District 41, 87, and also on the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission. And in the 2017, I decided to re-up. I thought 20 years or so was long enough to say that I wouldn't do consecutive terms, and I ran again. One of the most important things too that you know of me, I am a current league member as well as my son Max. So Mark, are you a league member? We're gonna have to talk to you about that.
Yes, yes.
And
I need to be coached.
Yes, and not to go sideways on everyone, Sean's favorite movie is American President. And I was going to then give the speech because I kind of knew Mark's answer was going to say, why aren't you a member, Mark? So I'm not. I think one of the most important things, yes, my term is only 4 months. And one of the things that I want to do, when I was growing up, I was instilled with a vision, not a vision, but it was community. This was our guiding light. We did things for the community. We did things for seniors. We did things. It was the guiding light. Somewhere, this guiding light, we've lost our course. We've lost our course to the North Star. So in 4 months, I hope that I can begin to get us back on that guiding light, that we are one community. We've had divisive issues. We don't have to have this. We can all talk together. We can talk civilly, and we make the best decisions for the village. And I just want to say that I don't know how much I can accomplish, but that is really the guiding principle for what I really want to do in the next 4 months. Okay, Mark, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Gary. And we'll run through this presentation, and then as Erica mentioned, certainly save time for questions that Gary and I can both kind of tag team and try to address the best way we can. So we'll just jump in here. So obviously everyone knows that 2020 has been an interesting year, and we have had our fair share of challenges, like many of you. But you know, we're excited about the prospects of the future, and I think we're going to come out of this stronger, and I've learned a lot along the way, that's for sure. So just we always like to start with this slide briefly, just talk a little bit about, you know, kind of our makeup and the key component of our village is the number of volunteers that we have involved. 85 volunteers serving on 11 different boards and commissions. And, you know, those are the folks that help guide a lot of the decisions we make, and wouldn't be able to do it without them. So this is about the time of year when we ask for volunteers. So we'll be doing some marketing on that in the community and in the newsletter and whatnot. So if there's interest in participating, there's an opportunity for you for sure. About 3 or 4 months ago, we finalized a long process of putting a strategic plan together that got delayed a little bit by COVID. So the board approved a strategic plan for 2020 to 2022, provides us a vision for the community over the next few years, and in essence comes up with 5 strategic priorities, which includes financial sustainability, development, effective governance, workforce and operations, and infrastructure. We have had there was an impact of the COVID pandemic on the village. We were very fortunate to have a real sound partner and relationship with the county through their efforts. We're able to get about 1.4 million in CARES Act funding to help mitigate some of that financial impact. But we're seeing about $1 million hit over 2 budget years from this pandemic. I think we've weathered it better than we expected and better than others, in part because of just the diversity of our revenue base, and the fact that instead of a mall or car dealers and kind of bigger ticket items, we are more diversified in our retail base, grocery stores and things of that kind that didn't see quite as much of an impact. So we're fortunate to come out better than we expected. We did try in many ways to, Acting Village President Fasules was a strong proponent of this all along, trying to do as much as we can for the business community that was really struggling. So we looked at a lot of different fees, adjusted those. Obviously, hope everyone took advantage of the tent that was on Main Street to try to help the restaurants. We did a lot of other things related to outdoor dining. We marketed, promoted the downtown businesses, tried to reach out as best we could to help them get back open after the restrictions were lifted. And we're hoping to see that happen here in the next few days as we continue to see better numbers and better metrics.
Part of it, sorry to interrupt,
Mark, no, go ahead.
Part of the CARES Act helped us fund those things. And also part of the CARES Act we use to abate our current taxes. So by doing that, we brought our tax levy down to zero in terms of trying to give the residents something who might be also hurting or have lost income in these tough times.
Very good point. We created we increased some of our grant programs, our award programs, from $15,000 per award to $30,000. So if a business wants to take this opportunity over the last few months or in the next few months to invest in their property, because business is slow and they've been wanting to invest for a while, we provided some additional opportunities to do just that. Funded that at a higher level. And then we also created a business support grant program. So we have been marketing this for the last few months, and we've the board just this week extended the deadline to the end of March. So businesses have a few more months to submit their application. It's a very simple process. Show that there's been some expenses related to COVID, and we'll reimburse the business up to $5,000. So we've had, I think like 25, 28.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little more than that. Maybe it's up to 30 now. Businesses participate, and we're anticipating we're going to see some more too after this last push. So we're excited about that. And even through this challenging economic time, we have had a number of new businesses open up. Surprising to me, 4 restaurants opened up over the last 6 months. So these are the businesses that are new on Roosevelt Road and in the downtown. And then we've got 4 more that are close to opening here. Again, we've got 3 in the downtown and 1 on Roosevelt Road. So we haven't seen, fortunately, a mass exodus of businesses. They've hung in there pretty well, and probably the largest reason, at least that's what we're hearing from the businesses, is the community has come out and really supported them. So I think that's a testimony to our community and how much we value the businesses, and vice versa. So that's been a positive of this whole event that's occurred over the last year. Taking a look at the downtown in particular, I know we typically get questions about some of the developments downtown. The Avera on Duane, the project across from the library, is real close to leasing up. They're hoping to start that next month, but that project is all but complete. It's 48 units, luxury apartment units, and I think it's turned out real well. They're a good developer that's got a great track record and not a lot of problems getting them moving along the construction process there. Apex 400 is the project going in at the Gishi site and the village parking lot. This is a $40 million project. It got tied up in the courts for a while. It's still actually on appeal, but they're moving forward and having success at the circuit court. The construction started in September, and we're hoping that it gets wrapped up in the spring of next year. So it's got about 8,500 square feet of retail on the first floor. We're excited about a restaurant going in on that corner potentially. It's 106 units. And then remember, everyone asked the question about the public parking. That is being replaced. So the first floor of the 5-story structure is public parking. They're replacing it basically 1 for 1. And then most recently, the McChesney site, long vacant and long time staple of the downtown, has finally been developed. I think it's been 4 owners, but we finally got a project approved. It's a $30 million project, 86 apartment units, about 1,500 square feet of commercial space, and private parking as well. And that was approved this past December, and they're hoping to break ground in November. Anticipate to complete it by the end of 2023. Interesting note in here, the board has started, and there's a little bit more information about this down the road in this presentation, but the board started a conversation about affordable housing, and this project incorporated 2 affordable housing units, kind of something that we were able to put forth at the end of the approval process, and the developer was willing to move forward with that. And 60% of the units are qualified as workforce housing. So as we start discussing affordable housing and workforce housing and age-in-place housing in the village, you know, this was a project that was able to meet some of those goals. Capital projects. We've been very busy on the capital project front over the last few years, and we're making some steady progress there. Parking has been an issue in the downtown for a long time. I've been in town 10 years and constantly talking about parking challenges. So the board approved and we moved forward with a parking garage behind the Civic Center. That should be completed later this spring by May 1st. It's going to equate to about 212 net new parking spaces for commuters, customers, merchant parking, the Civic Center employees. We've got Innovation DuPage and College DuPage that will be coming back in this building at some point when the pandemic is over. So it's going to meet a lot of those needs, and we're excited about it. And we've got another slide here showing it's, I think it fits in very well with the Civic Center. It was a little more expensive than we were hoping, but it's definitely going to be an asset for years to come. And then most recently, I think Gary, it was 2 meetings ago, right, that we approved. This was the old Schonkweiler building on Main Street next to, this is the Katie's space here, and this is Sushi Yukai. So the village had some forethought and bought this building about 5 years ago with the intent purpose of knocking it down and creating a better accessibility to the parking garage. So we're excited that this portion of it was approved by the board. This is not necessarily the mural you're going to see there, but this is a public art wall that we're hoping to incorporate into this, and this is a sculpture that some type of art might go there, but it's a nice entranceway into the garage and gets accessibility both to Main Street, and then you'll see an alley down to Duane Street as well. So we really want to make this as inviting as possible and get the most use out of it as we can. Another project that we spent a lot of time on over the last 5 years is our Streetscape Project. And we probably shared this with everyone last year, but we've got some older infrastructure in the downtown. And when I say infrastructure, I'm really talking water, sewer, sanitary. Some places it's still 100 years old, and just it's past its useful life. So we know this project was coming. We're trying to get as much feedback and community input as possible as we go forward with a major reconstruction project, because we want to make sure we're doing what we can to enhance the pedestrian feel for the residents as well as for the businesses and customers. So we spent a lot of time with our design experts, and we've had businesses involved and elected officials and other stakeholders try to help kind of drive some of these decisions. So we've made a lot of progress. What you're seeing here, it's about a $30 million project. This is the very tentative schedule, phasing it out over 4 or 5 years. The first phase, which is what we've been talking a lot about, would be this south portion of the downtown, Duane Street and Main Street. And we're still trying to get some input from the business community on what they think would be the best strategy in terms of timing. Because the Apex project is going on at Gishi, does it make sense to try to align this project at the same time so businesses have one construction cycle versus having two? We won't start the project until the parking garage opens after May 1st. So at least the parking would be, the street parking that might be lost would be made up with the garage. From that standpoint, we're trying to provide some relief, but it's a tough decision. Businesses have really struggled over the last year. So we understand both sides of it. We're just trying to make the best decision. So that's coming to a head probably sometime next month. But the project itself, we know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And it's going to, obviously a project of this magnitude has an impact short term on the businesses and the residents for that matter. But when it's done, I don't know if you paid any attention to Wheaton over the last few years, they went through a similar project timeline. I think they're 3 or 4 years into a 6-year project. It looks great that now that it's done, and we anticipate that ours is going to be much more functional and look great when it's done as well. So it incorporates new sidewalks, new street furniture, new trees. The urban forest is declining, so it's the right time to replace the urban forest with a more diversified urban forest. And we're going to be putting in what's called sickle cell, is a technology whereby we put the infrastructure in that helps care for the roots of the trees while we're tearing up the streets. So these trees should last a lot longer and be healthier. So we're excited about that aspect as well. And the board has been, very diligent and thorough in making sure that we're thinking of, all aspects of this, because you only get one chance to get it right. So again, we're excited about getting that project. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here and come back to that one. So this is just a couple other illustrations of what it would look like. This is Pennsylvania and this is Maine. So this is what some of the elements and you might have seen the mock-ups on Crescent and kind of in front of M&M's there. We had about 10 different elements, 4 or 5 different designs. And we really wanted to hear from the community on what looks and felt the best in the downtown. We got some great feedback and followed about 90 to 95% of the recommendations. So we've got a few things to tweak, but it's coming together pretty well. Here's a new element, a mid-block crossing that's going to be incorporated on Main Street, right in front of kind of Nobel House there, and some of the, how the sidewalk will play. We've tried to widen the sidewalks where we can without losing too much parking, because that's one of the things we've been hearing is making the downtown as pedestrian friendly as possible, as well as incorporating opportunities for outdoor dining wherever we can. So that's something that's been important to the community and to village boards for the last few years. This is just an illustration of the feedback we got regarding the material mock-ups that we had out in the downtown. And then lastly, our third kind of large project planned for the downtown is a brand new train station and pedestrian underpass. Again, we've talked about this for a couple of years. This is still a few years out as we're working with our stakeholders and legislators to secure additional grant funds. We've been pretty successful to date. We've got about $20 million in federal dollars and state dollars and Metro funds that have been earmarked. But the pedestrian tunnel, I think, is something that's long overdue from a safety standpoint, not only for commuters, but just anybody walking in the downtown. You get a couple freight trains that go by at the same time, and you could be waiting 10 or 15 minutes at an intersection. This will allow it. This is a good way to connect the north and the south downtown areas, and maybe even free up more parking opportunities. So like if you're going to the theater, you can park on the south side of the tracks. Know you've got a nice pedestrian friendly underpass to get to the theater and then walk back and park. So I think it really kind of connects the two downtowns together. And it's a train station that's been around for 50, 60 years. It's just kind of a time to make that investment. So really excited about all three projects we talked about: the garage, the Streetscape Project, and this train station project. All of this being funded without a property tax increase. We're using TIF dollars, which is a economic development tool that we've had in place for about 8 or 9 years. We've instituted our new food and beverage tax, and we've been saving up for these projects for a number of years as well. So, and then the last slide, kind of wrapping up that section of the presentation, is this. We always get asked about timing. So this is our best tentative schedule for these projects, but you'll see it's $60 million of public investment and $90 million of private investment with just the 3 development projects alone. All these other businesses are constantly investing in their businesses and properties. So that's on top of the $90 million in private investment with just the Apex 400, the Glenwood Station project at McChesney, and the Aver project that's coming online soon. So we're excited this is all kind of coming together in a $150 million public-private investment in our downtown. So other initiatives, we are excited about our comprehensive plan. The last one was adopted in 2001. We embarked on this about 2 years ago. We started. This also got kind of put on the shelf with COVID for 6 or 7 months, but we've had some public hearings in January. We've got our 3rd public hearing scheduled for February 25th. And then it will go to the Plan Commission and then ultimately to the Village Board. But our comprehensive plan is basically a blueprint for what the future of the village may look like. Focusing mostly in commercial areas, but not exclusively. And it is an opportunity to kind of set a vision for the future. So making sure we get community input throughout this whole process is really important. And we did a lot of surveying and got feedback early on. And now we're bringing back those recommendations and incorporating into an overall kind of guiding principle. We are partnering with the library as well as the other taxing bodies on what we're calling the DEI project, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion project. The library has been a terrific partner in kind of coordinating all these efforts and conversations with the community around these 3 critical components of any quality community. And we're excited to have these conversations, and then we're hoping to have some real clear goals and action steps to incorporate into our strategic plan. We identified the need to have the conversation and our conversations, and now we're hoping to plug in some action steps and implement the recommendations from these conversations. So there's meetings this weekend, and then over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we've got a facilitator that's doing a nice job kind of getting people to share their ideas and concerns. And we're excited about partnering with our other taxing bodies because doing this as a community, I think, brings more meaning and purpose to it, and hopefully drives some of these goals collectively rather than just individual entities kind of doing their own thing. So we're excited about this coming together over the next 60 days or so. This is just kind of a little fun thing that we had a meeting this afternoon. We're trying to pull together here. So we enjoyed putting the tent on Main Street so much. We're trying something new this winter. The board is again pushing us to try every way to support the business community and the community and the residents, I mean. And we are working with the Park District, partnering with them to build a synthetic ice rink on the Crescent parking lot, kind of the east side of the Crescent parking lot. So kids can come out and ice skate. We'd have an area where you can put your skates on. And then this area, we're looking to maybe partner with some businesses to have them do some carry out food and drinks. And then so, you know, parents and whatnot can have a drink and have dinner while their kids are ice skating. And it's just an exciting way to get people out of their house after a long winter. And then a way to also support the businesses downtown to get people coming downtown and shopping and dining again, hopefully very soon. So don't know the exact timing, sometime in February, hopefully early February, but we still have to work out a lot of the details. Other upcoming events, I mentioned the Winter Pop-Up Plaza. We are still hopeful that the Frida Kahlo exhibit happens at COD. It's still tentative from June to September, and we're not exactly sure what the travel plans for the attendees are going to look like. So still some unknowns there, but we're crossing our fingers and hoping that comes together. So we'll see what time will tell there. And then just a couple other board initiatives that are exciting and we frequently get questions about. Speaking of COD, we are partnering with COD on a public art initiative. So they funded $25,000. We've funded $25,000 over 2 years to incorporate some public art in the downtown and in the community. So that picture of the pedway we showed with the parking garage, that's one opportunity for some public art. And it's been something the board has been talking about for some time, and we're very pleased that COD is taking a leadership role here, and they're hopeful that they can do something in Glen Ellyn and then roll it out to their other partners in other towns over the next decade or so. Community grant program. We are looking at reinstituting support for non-for-profits to this community grant program that we used to do when Gary was on the board previously, and up until about 8 or 9, 10 years ago. So we funded this. We're hoping the DuPage Foundation or maybe some other group will take responsibility for issuing the grants. That's not something we have a lot of experience with. So we're trying to put a kind of a plan together for that, but we're going to fund and try to help these not-for-profits that have had a very challenging year themselves, and try to do what we can to help. The housing work group our task force is going to be helping us kind of assess our housing stock and develop some goals and strategies to make sure we're a diversified housing stock that incorporates affordable housing, workforce housing, more age in place housing. And as I mentioned before, we've got about 240 new units going into downtown. So those units are meeting some of these goals, but we want to be a little more proactive in planning future developments and trying to develop some goals for the future and to incorporate into our strategic plan as well. A few other things here. Police department assessment and staffing study is going on. We like to take an in-depth look at our departments from time to time and make sure we're meeting the needs of the community and doing so efficiently and effectively. So we're doing that with the police department over the next few months. Recreational cannabis is something the board has talked about a number of times, and most recently deferred. We did a referendum, and the referendum was pretty close. There was a little bit of a majority that were favoring supporting a recreational cannabis facility in town if a license is available and a developer wants to put that in Glen Ellyn. But that decision's been deferred, and we'll take it up again in July. And then last but not least, the McKee House on St. Charles Road is something that the Forest Preserve owns. They have leased to us with a facility. We're using it for salt now. They used it as a fleet facility previous to that. So that salt storage has been built, and we're using it already. The McKee House is something that we're continuing to work with our partners and see if there's a way to find some outside funding to save the house and utilize it as a community rooms. And they are called, the American Legion is interested in partnering with us, and we've been working with them over the last 6 months to maybe take a leadership role with that renovation project. So, and then I guess the very last thing is the new village board will be taking over in May after the April election. And then we always finish the slide with just ways to stay informed and keep up with all the goings on. So please stay connected. And if you've got questions on anything, we're always around to try to address those concerns or questions. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions anyone may have. Gary, did I miss anything?
No, you did a pretty good job.
Thank you.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Daly. I'm the VP of Communication and going to run through some of the questions we have. First of all, thank you very much to both Gary and Mark for joining us tonight. This has been interesting so far. And hopefully these questions will also, some of them are very specific and some of them are more general.
Sure.
We've received quite a few questions online prior to the start of this meeting. So I'm going to start with those questions. And then if people who are watching now would like to ask a question, please put it in the chat. And then if we have time at the end of these questions, we'll get to your questions in chat. Great.
So I just want to correct that. It's in Q&A. That's
it's in Q&A?
Q&A,
oh,
yep.
Apologies. I think I did see some in chat though as well. So we'll look at both sources. The first question we had, there were a number of questions because there was a lot of social media posts, etc., about some of the impact to the downtown restaurants and other stores by the construction. One in particular talked about the Santa Fe restaurant and some flooding there from the Apex project. And so there were a couple questions on that. How was it resolved? And what is the village doing to help support the restaurants who might see some impact, negative or otherwise, from this project? Sure.
Yes, Santa Fe, obviously a longtime business in the community at 2 different locations. We've partnered with them, and the village board recently approved an agreement with them that addressed their concerns. We provided some funding to help with their south facade. So, for example, that project is going to be built right adjacent to their property. So they've got to brick up some of their windows and address some flooding issues that they had in their basement. So we were able to encourage the developer to modify their construction plan slightly and address some of the concerns that way. And then we provided some funding to help offset some of the costs that they have, and then we're also trying to partner with them like we would any business to allow them to participate in our award programs if they're going to make any major investments. There are a number of award programs that they would be eligible for, and we're continuing to have conversations with them on those fronts too. Mm-hmm.
Great. We had one other question on a few of the questions you already answered, but there was one specific question about, again, in the same area. What measures will ensure that businesses on Main Street north of the tracks will not be hurt during the construction project? And what's the benefit of getting rid of the angled parking that actually makes stopping to pick something up quickly from the store so convenient?
Yes, that is a good question that we get often. And I should probably go into a little bit of background about how we're trying to drive these decisions. So we have a capital improvement commission made up of volunteers in the community that's really been a key component of this design process. So a lot of these decisions have been vetted with them and incorporated feedback from the community throughout. So the angled parking component is an interesting one, because we have many resident stakeholders that have been pushing us and have goals of making the downtown more pedestrian friendly, wider sidewalks, more outdoor dining opportunities, more places for events, and we want to see some activity generated on the streets themselves, and then others that want that convenient parking, and the angled parking is very convenient. And we've just tried to find some kind of balance. So in some areas that angle parking is going to prevail and going to remain. In other places, we decided to go with the wider sidewalk. So not an easy decision, but I think one of the reasons we think that we've expanded the parking options by building a parking garage and hopefully getting a lot of that longer term parking off the street that we can survive with a few less street parking spaces but it's a constant balance.
Another thing that we had to wrestle with is there is state funding that if we meet certain parking requirements and also certain sizes of the width and length, et cetera, that we qualify for it. So part of it is like Mark said, you get 6 people in a room, we can't all agree. Some people want angle, some people just want parallel. And then you throw in those requirements of balancing that so you can get that $500,000 for the project. It becomes a interesting, long discussion on it. So a lot of it, some of it was driven by some state requirements to get funding.
That's true. And then the second part of your question was, what are we doing to mitigate this for businesses north of the tracks? And that's right. I mean, this project is going to be a bit invasive. We've been saying all along that it's going to be, short-term pain for long-term gain. We're gonna continue to communicate with the businesses on a regular basis throughout this project. We're going to have a lot of resources available to, as the project's going on right in front of them, to try to partner and minimize the impacts as much as we can while it's going on. But for the whole downtown, we're going to have to continue to promote the shop local, do marketing, try to find alternative spaces for events to still keep that traffic coming downtown and helping the businesses. So we're going to do what we can to partner and get through this together. Great.
There, shifting gears, there was a question about the first slide you started with had all of the different commissions, etc.
Sure.
The question was, citizens are encouraged to serve on these boards and commissions, and many serve and donate their time and energy. Is there a systemic way in which feedback from these boards is used by the village? And is that system effective in your opinion? And can you give us an example of one of these boards having influenced the decision of the village board?
Sure, I can start, and then I'll turn over to you, Gary, or you want to start?
Yes, no, you can. I'll walk everyone through the process of what I get on a Friday afternoon, and they'll understand how these boards are used. So.
Yeah, that's right. So we absolutely use these boards as in a couple different ways. One is that they're the eyes and ears for us, and we want to hear from these stakeholders as much as we can. So they tackle the details of a lot of these projects. So maybe it's best to talk about a couple examples. The CIC Commission, for example, has been really working on the Streetscape Project. So they go into the details of, what are the streets going to look like? What's the timing of the project? What are the costs? What are the different elements that we think work the best? So they get into the details, provide that recommendation, and then the village board certainly is listening to them and that helps drive the decisions. So we do that with the Finance Commission, looking at debt policies and property tax policies, and the Planning Commission. Every development project goes to the Plan Commission, and certainly, their recommendation carries a lot of weight with the village board. So, and we've structured this, and this is Gary can jump in here, but we've structured this where there's a staff liaison, and then there's a board liaison. So at each of these meetings, a board member is listening to the conversation and then can bring that back to the full board and share all the thoughts and kind of the dialogue that went on with each of these decisions. So they are an integral part of this whole process, certainly.
I would say 90% of what I receive, every Friday before a board meeting or a workshop, I receive a packet. This packet varies from 100 pages, and one we just received was 1,300 pages. So what is in this packet is for the major decisions like Streetscape. This week, last Friday, I got the packet. It had the recommendation of the materials that we should be using for every phase of that streetscape from the Capital Improvement Commission. I then had in that same packet, I had detailed transcripts of their meetings to come up with that recommendation. So, and I also then had a summary. So I had a summary, I had the detailed recommendations, and then I had all the diagrams, almost a lot of what you saw in the presentation, but I probably had another 30 page presentation. So we get all that information. So when we talk about it, we have it for the week, and then we read it, we digest it. When we're talking about it, we're as informed as we can be. The only thing that might be missing, but even though when you have the planning commission for like one of the building projects, we would even see the comments by the residents. And that is the important part. And the important part is to get the residents up front, because by the time I get all this packet, I have everything, and I should have had the residents' input. So it's really important, like when we've got a building project, that the residents get out to the planning commission. On Streetscape, they get out to the capital improvements committee and tell them about how they feel. So, and I don't want to go sideways, but I probably will. The last thing is, I encourage you, you say everything, what can we do to encourage participation in this? I encourage this group, because of the fundamental importance to the community, call your trustees. I'm going to give example. There's two members who called me. One was Kim Reed, another was Joyce. They called me, they talked to me. They talked to me for about an hour about issues that were important to them. One, Kim talked to me about the youth and family counseling, and I couldn't do anything immediately, but after we missed the one budgeting cycle, but for this budgeting cycle, we got additional funding for the youth and family counseling. The second one was Joyce. Just when the McChesney project was going, she called me and talked to me about affordable housing. It had just been when we had just heard a little bit about affordable housing, but I would tell you right now, the last thing I was thinking about was in that project was affordable housing. She explained to me all this. She spent an hour with me. I then went back to the board and said, we need to make several of these units. We saw the rent of these units, and we said the lower rent units, we should make affordable housing. Mark went back to the developer showed interest. We then at the nth hour changed our agreement with the developer to make those affordable housing. Now, someone will say, well, you only got 2 units. 2 units is a start. I couldn't make the whole building affordable housing. I would have loved to, but I couldn't, but we got 2. If we get 2 this time, we can get 4 next time, and we can keep doing it. It's a process. So what I'm trying to say is call your trustees. You can get on a board. I encourage you also to put in the application to be on a board, because the board has vacancies and you can be a participant in one of those boards. If you know people who you think would be good, have them put in their application. And that's how we get the residents involved. We need to hear everyone's voice. We don't necessarily hear everyone's voice, but we need, and I think what you're doing, and I've seen it firsthand, and the time that this organization puts into getting people aware, we got to keep pushing. So I encourage you to get people to apply, and I encourage you to get people to call us.
Well, we had, thank you. We had a number of questions just to bridge from what you're talking about in terms of affordable housing. Given the number of people knocking on your door from the league, you can tell it's an important issue for us. One question specifically was, what percentage of housing in Glen Ellyn is defined as affordable? And what is the definition of affordable in terms of being able to get federal grants or Illinois grants?
Yeah, this is we started this conversation a few months ago. There's probably people listening in that are much more expert. I know there are, because Joyce is on the call. She's much more expert than I am, but we have done a preliminary assessment of that, And what we want to do is pull a task force together and explore it even further. But the state requirement for affordable units for each community in Illinois is 10%. There's not a lot of teeth to that. I think everyone would agree there's not a lot of teeth to that. So it's more of a voluntary basis. But Glen Ellyn has about just under 16% would be classified as affordable. So what we want to do is try to further assess these different categories, make sure we understand where we might have some gaps. Age in place housing is something we've been talking about since I've been here. So for 10 years, I think the thought is that we're losing our seniors to other towns because there's not enough housing stock to allow them to downsize. So we know there's some goals there. We just got to figure out how best to identify those gaps and how to go after them and try to fill them.
Along on this issue too, there's an interest by several board members to even look at not affordable but accessory housing and the housing that might be duplexes in residential areas. There is a lot of things that we as a board are going to discuss on what we want to try to accomplish before the new board sits. And I do believe there was an indication last week that that was one of them, the accessory housing. But we have 4 months to do it. The proper mechanism of getting the study, I don't know if it can be done, but we are going to try to start that and try to finish it before the terms of the trustees coming off are over. Now, Mark, this is an important issue to the league. Is there a way that we can get them our staff report so they can possibly publish it to all league members so we're all talking from the same data and have one source of truth?
That was a public document that was on our agenda, and many in the audience have a copy of it. But we can certainly
get that to Erica, and then they can see how they would like to possibly publish it in their newsletter or however they want to do it. I think that would be important to this group.
Perfect. That will be helpful. Thank you. You did mention briefly about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We had a number of questions on that, but I'll summarize. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Project running this month concludes on January 30th with a community listening session, which we invite or suggest everybody have a look at. On developing next steps that are sustainable. What is the village and village trustees' commitment to sustaining this effort even after the April 6th election with a contested village president race and new trustees being seated?
I think that's a commitment the village board has made through our strategic plan, and this is just the first step. We're hopeful that, like I mentioned before, that the project and the facilitator are going to be able to identify some goals that the village board would vet and incorporate into our strategic plan. And we've already, one of the exercises we went through is kind of an assessment, informal assessment. And we've already have a few ideas that we want to incorporate. We want to revisit our recruitment policy for all village employee positions. We've long had a goal of trying to diversify our board and commission mix. So that's something that's going to continue. One of the reasons that drove a lot of our investment in our facilities is ADA issues. And the Streetscape Project, we've got a number of concerns downtown, and the Streetscape Project is going to address a lot of ADA issues for pedestrians and whatnot. Those are some of the goals. I'm sure we're going to have many more, and then we'll put some action steps around it and try to implement as best we can. Did that address all the questions?
I think that addresses enough of them, and we can certainly have follow-up on this issue once that listening session closes.
You are at the beginning of the process.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You're at the very beginning. What the board is looking for is the recommendations from this committee and this group. And then we will start discussing how the village may incorporate more of those, what it may mean. You may see in the near future, and I can't promise this, but you may see 12 boards on that next in couple of years, because one could be a diversity board. Don't know how, but it's just walk, crawl, walk, run. We're probably just baby rolling over right now.
Mm-hmm. Right. We had a question, one last one from online, which involved vaccine distribution for COVID in Glen Ellyn, and if the board and the village is involved at all in that.
Yeah, so we've been meeting with the county health department since the outset of this. Back in fact, we had a meeting in the third floor of the Civic Center last March when we first heard about COVID-19 and didn't have a clue what was going on. We've come a long way in a year, but they have the health department has done a great job in communicating. We have weekly calls with them every Monday morning. We have been assisting them in trying to get information out to the community, and this vaccination rollout. It's been a little slow to start, and what we've done just recently is try to pledge that not just Glen Ellyn, but all the municipalities are here to try to provide more assistance. If it's helping find locations for distribution, if it's police patrols to help with traffic control around these locations, if it's our paramedics helping give the vaccines themselves, or anything that they would need, we want to help them, because we really would like to see the federal government, the state government, the county government, local government, all working together, pulling on the same side of the rope. It would be great to be able to really kind of shine over the next couple months and get this vaccination project rolling. So we'll be at the table making suggestions and helping anywhere we can.
I think you will start to see more answers coming to the public after what the president implemented today, and the coordination of more coordinated effort between all government entities.
Mm-hmm. Great, terrific. One of the things I've really missed with COVID are all the festivals and concerts and things like that we've had. We have someone asking if the village has ever had an arts commission, and if there are any plans on that front.
At Arts Commission, we do have a arts work group that was developed just recently with our partnership with COD. So they're putting together some local artists to assist with that, and then bring forward some ideas and locations for where we think public art will have the greatest impact. So that is underway, and we're really appreciative that COD has taken the lead on it.
And there'll be a chance for other citizens to be involved in that, or there'll be a request?
Yeah, there is. It's a little more targeted at artists, but yes, if there's an interest, people can certainly call me, and I would put them in contact with that group. I've actually had a couple artists want to do something, so we'll take those requests and let the group vet them and determine where and how effective we can be over the next couple of years. With we have limited resources, but we certainly have some funds available. Not per se, it doesn't deal with an art commission or art committee. There is a group on the current trustees that when we're doing the streetscape, we feel it's very important that we create a walkable city, and part of that walkable city is art. And we're strapping with how do we put it? Where do we put it? The Pedway is where we started to say that would be a good place for people to meet and have it some artistic. And the debate comes in: do you want a water screen? Do you want a statue? Do you want a mural? And it's going to be a progression, but I think the whole board believes there's got to be more art downtown. It's got to be more festive. It's got to be something that can bring people to the community.
But the arts work group is not just about public art, right? It's also the other arts in a broader term, or just sort of? No, what we mean by that is the public art initiative. Yeah, you were asking about special events. Special events are a key component of our downtown. We manage our special events really through our partners at the Downtown Alliance and the Chamber and a few other outside groups.
And we're not exactly sure what the timing is going to look like this summer, but we're hopeful. For example, the Taste of Glen Ellyn, I think they're trying to shift to a September timeframe. You know, let's hope the 4th of July parade can go off in some form this year, but a lot of that is still kind of unknown depending on how we manage the vaccine.
Okay, just to be clear, I think that's what the question was meant in terms of broader arts, although having certainly specific art is also a good thing, right?
If I'm a betting person and I'm listening to Dr. Fauci, and you can say he's right or wrong, I'm not going to debate that. He said even with the vaccine, returning to normal will happen late 3rd quarter or early 4th, and that those, by returning to normal, is being able to congregate in large amounts, going to theaters, going to athletic stadiums, probably having the fair, etc. So if they're expecting it in the spring, I would say no. My business that I have, all my trade shows that we were going to had basically been canceled for the first half of the year. So, you know, hopefully, and I can't promise, hopefully maybe 4th of July is a reality, but it may not be. And I think we have to put things in reality, that we have to do things that are safe.
Sure. Well, hence why we're having this meeting via Zoom,
Right.
as we've had all of our meetings this year. We have a couple questions on the police department. The first is, does the Village of Glen Ellyn have a citizens advisory or review committee for the police department? And then the second part of that is, will the police department analysis review be released to the public? So two separate questions but related.
Yes, the police department does have a fire and police commission, and that their role is exclusively the hiring of police officers, entry-level police officers, as well as promotions. So that's their kind of defined role, and it's an important role that, you know, it's been a little bit more challenging to hire police officers lately, so their job is even that much more important. But yes, the study is being done at the direction of the village board. That will come back to the village board, and it certainly will be made public.
Anything more on that topic? No? Okay. There was a question on the US Bank site and if there was anything planned for the US Bank site.
Yeah, the US Bank site is, that's the one on Duane Street downtown. That is on the market. We've been talking to the broker for a few months. There is some interest, I think, from the development community, which is always encouraging to see. But we don't have any specific plans. It was a site that we took a close look at and incorporated into our comprehensive plan. So as that gets rolled out, we'll certainly utilize that as a tool and a way to kind of steer developers and the owners of the property that this is what the community kind of envisions there. Again, it's a guide. It's not a mandatory requirement or anything like that, but we'll see what the future holds for that site. It's interesting, that site is so close to where we will be incorporating the pedestrian underpass for the train station, that there's you know, the opportunity to maybe align those things, and maybe there's some opportunities for open space there as well, and reconfiguring some of the parking with the garage across the street. So there's a whole lot of opportunities there to partner with whoever develops the site.
There's another question also that's related to development. The Apex developers were responsible for the negative issues related to the Santa Fe restaurant. Why would the village also be paying for the problems caused?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Maybe I should have clarified. There's no way to prove who was responsible. And this is, I think there's some miscommunication about this in the community. They didn't cause the flooding by something that they did. The parking lot was removed. Again, the parking lot is the village parking lot. And because of that parking lot was a cap, and we see this on other development sites at times too. So when you remove that cap, water's going into the ground and it's getting into the foundation somehow. So it's always a challenge. We see it with 2 residential homes quite frequently, unfortunately. And there's no way to really say who's responsible for what. So we just thought we better to partner and not fight. So we all got together over a series of meetings and figured out an amicable solution that was a win-win-win for everybody.
The next question is about tax increment financing. So the question is, why all the tax increment financing? Glen Ellyn has always had investors interested in projects. You know, the question is about the need for taxes versus the need to try to give carrots, I guess, to these developers.
Sure. All right, let's just go back a little bit and kind of explain what that means, so for those that don't understand tax increment financing. So tax increment financing is a tool, probably the best tool in Illinois anyway, to spur development. So the only way you can create a TIF district, and we have a TIF district, the whole downtown is in a TIF district, and then Roosevelt Road, a portion of Roosevelt Road is in a TIF district. We've got 2 TIF districts. And they've only been in place about 7 and 9 years respectively. So you have to meet certain criteria to be able to create a TIF district. You got to be either dilapidated based on a list of characteristics or a certain age. And the downtown was eligible for both. And older downtowns, that is not uncommon. We do have some older buildings, and there's just challenges with seeing investment in those buildings because of the age and because of some of the conditions of those buildings. We also saw an opportunity with some larger retailers that weren't going to be long in the game. You know, the malls and Amazon have changed the retail environment significantly. So Gishi and McChesney and a few others, US Bank site falls in that category too. They just, there's a changing of the guard. So the Village for 15 years now have been trying to encourage kind of this private investment. And again, one of the best ways to do it is by creating a TIF. So the TIF was created, and TIF district, there's not an automatic, these property tax dollars don't go to a developer automatically. What it does is it caps the property tax, and then any growth from when it was capped goes into a separate fund, and that fund is controlled by the village. And the village then can use those funds for capital projects. And I mentioned that before. That's helping us fund our parking garage, our streetscape project, and probably our train station. So it's a way to use those limited dollars to put it back into the district so that you're making those improvements and the overall district is improved. Now, another eligible way to use the dollars is to incentivize developers to come to the village and invest in these projects. So we have given incentives to these developers on a very limited basis, and they're performance based. So they don't get anything unless their property taxes are increasing, and then we would give some of that money back to them. We did that with Aver, we did that with Apex, and we did that with Glenwood Station. So the other taxing bodies are not impacted by that because they're not losing anything. They set their tax levies up and still get the money they need to survive. Eventually, this tax district will go away, and whatever the new growth is will then be shared with all the taxing bodies. So when these TIFs go away, then the other taxing bodies will see the benefit of all that private investment. So it's a long-term strategy, but it's one that helps the village meet the needs of our downtown with the capital projects and helps all the taxing bodies in the long run. Did that make sense? Makes sense, absolutely.
It's a tough topic for sure. We have just a quick one here about when phase 1B starts. I think you had said earlier that that's not exactly set yet. Is that right?
Yeah, I was going to try to, let me see if I can share the screen here real quick. I think this is a good image that could help kind of paint a picture for everybody if this works. So this just came out today from the county. Can you guys see that? Wish it was a little bigger. But so in essence, this phase 1 is what's been going on here the last couple months. And then phase 1B, they're saying would start in February. I think it might even start sooner than that. I've heard January 25th and take a few months. And then phase 1C would be May to June. So there's a little bit of information. This will be publicized as we move forward here and we get more information. And one thing we'll learn we already have, is it's going to constantly change and evolve. So we'll continue to try to keep everybody as informed as we can be.
Great.
Oh, here.
And I know we only have a few minutes left here. We have a couple of questions with regard to housing, about affordable, what's considered affordable for age-related housing, but also who will participate in the housing work group and task force.
Yeah, that's something we haven't necessarily put together yet, but I know we'll be talking to the folks that have paid attention and been attending some of the meetings. We want to make sure we get the experts in this field to help us, but we have not kicked that off yet. We hope to do so in the next few weeks. And the other part of your question is, what makes up affordable housing? I'm sorry, I'm not the best person to just I forget what the thresholds are exactly, but I know there's a threshold for affordable, there's a threshold for workforce, and that's where we want to do a deeper dive.
I think we should let Joyce answer that.
Yeah. She's the expert.
The document that we're going to get to will explain all that. It'll show the village where we stand in the village for it, and it will be a really good overview of our current situation in the village.
Great. I think we have another question just popped up. Would you describe the effect that the TIF district funding has on local school districts and other public bodies?
Sure, I can try to piggyback on what I was explaining before. So the benefit from long-term is that without this TIF district, we probably would not have been able to get these developments interested and be able to make their projects viable. The taxes, particularly for apartments in Milton Township, are very high, and they weren't able to, they have to meet what's called a but-for, what would you call that? A but-for equation, meaning but for this TIF incentive, I would not be able to move forward with the project. So the fact that we were able to use some limited dollars to get them to make their project viable, to make that $90 million investment, then when the TIF is over, that $90 million investment and the taxes from that would be considered new construction for all the other taxing bodies, and they all get the benefit. So long term, there's benefit. In the short term, the taxing bodies have been good partners. We have to meet with them on a yearly basis under what's called the Joint Review Board. So we share with them how we're doing and where the TIF is heading. But they're still setting their tax levy. They're still getting the dollars they need to function, and then they'll get the benefits at the end of the TIF when the TIF district goes away.
That's great. Thank you. Well, knowing that we're right on the edge of our time here, we have one more question, and that is, how can the League of Women Voters help the two of you in your roles, particularly Gary, as you're looking at for 4 months?
I'm glad you asked, because this was the curveball I was going to throw Erica. I was hoping that we wouldn't have to do question and answers, because what I want to hear from the league is, what do they think the state of the village is? We gave you what we've done. It's just a list of tasks and things. We got these builders in, but we've got to keep integrity of the process. We've got to make sure that this is a community that is taking all viewpoints into it. And we need to know. So I challenge all league members, let us know, how are we doing? And I don't care if you tell us we're failing or if we got an A. I'm not so concerned about specific issues, but overall, the spirit of the community, the guiding light of the community. Where do we need to improve? We don't hear from enough residents. We only hear from the residents when they don't want a building project, or they want this, or they want something that's dear to their heart. What we don't hear is how we doing overall. And that in the 4 months, I really want to know so we can set some groundwork. Mark does have some action items. He's got a whole list that once a quarter, he showed us how he's improving and doing this and what he's on task for and what this, but it doesn't deal with the spirit of Glen Ellyn. It doesn't deal with how we as a community want to go forward. It doesn't deal with our guiding light. And only if organizations like yours and mine, since I'm a member, tell us, can we course correct? This organization, as long as the other organizations, have to keep our process, the integrity of our process complete. Without it, it becomes a process that isn't complete. You got to keep the board on the guiding light, focused on the North Star, developing what the community wants in terms of spirit, what community means, etc. I think we've addressed a lot of the issues that are important to the league tonight, but I didn't find out, how are we doing? Are we all?
Challenge, Gary, to us.
Yes.
And we'll
So I'm challenging you, pick up the phone and call me, write me. Pick up the phone and call the trustees. They'll hate me for saying that, but write them. But I'm gonna tell you one thing right now too. The spoken word is more powerful than the written word. We saw that with Martin Luther King. All his famous quotes bar none, are probably some of the most famous quotes everyone quotes. They were spoken word. They weren't written. Call us. That's my task to you. Get us involved with your thinking so we can get the guiding, the course correct, and we're following the North Star. So I just want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure. And I just want everyone to know this was my first official act as acting village president. So thank you for having me.
Gary, thank you so much for that. I guess I'd call it a call to action. And I do think that some of that kind of guiding principle and philosophy of the village, you and Mark have spoken to, even in the DE&I work that you're doing with us as a community. And certainly Glen Ellyn is not alone. But that question that was raised about what's that commitment post our consolidated election, right? Is this something that will stay true? And I heard both of you say, yes, that this is just the beginning. So we appreciate that. And I think this is a great call to action. This ties into one last charge about coming back on February 18th for our community meeting, because that is about voter apathy. It's about local elections and the power of knowing what these candidates do, what is the role of each of these positions, and who are those folks that are running for these roles to lead for the next 4 years. So that's the power of engagement.
I was informed yesterday by Mark that I now have the ability to appoint vacancies on commissions. So it was news to me. I'm debating, is it really fair for the next incoming president? But in the meantime, if I do, I'd like to see some of the league members put their hats in the arena for some of these commissions. It's great for us to talk about what are we doing, but what are you doing? And I know, don't get me wrong on that. I do know the time you've committed to doing what you're doing. I have a spouse who I admire for all the time she's done and tried to pull her back and say, hey, it's about me. And that doesn't go very well. So
no, you bring up a really fair point, and that is, and you have a lot of people in the league and a lot of community members who are on this call tonight who are involved in terms of knowledge and want to be more engaged. So that invitation, I think, is really timely.
Please reach out to me.
Gary, do you want to give us your phone number?
You have an email address.
Dawn's. You can call her and she can hand me the phone. I think I'm in the league book. I'm sorry, ladies. I'm in the league book here.
I would like to add that when Eric and I became co-presidents, one of our missions was to work with other community organizations.
Yes.
And I feel like we have accomplished that, and then not as well since COVID, but we have been able to, I think we've worked with Mark, the library. So I think I love your call to action, and there's a lot of people listening now. And one thing we can do as our league is to put out something Eric and I can put out the call to action to our members.
Right.
So you've given us something to do, and we appreciate that. Both of you. Thank you so much for this evening.
Well, I thank you two, three, for running this. And I thank you too for being the co-presidents and leading the organization that I'm a member of. It's greatly appreciated.
And I'd like to add that your son is a member as well, Max.
Yes, he is. And he helped with the last candidate forum that you could have in person.
That's right. Yep. He was, that's right. He was very involved in that.
Yeah.
So don't miss that opportunity, as Gary has pointed out. Mark, thank you so much. These
no problem. Happy to be here.
Everybody, long days for everybody, and especially our leadership right now. The springtime is crazy busy, so we appreciate your time every year in January when we come together. So thank you, Karin. Thank you for being our moderator again for questions. We will see everybody in between now and February 18th. Lots going on, so keep an eye on our website and our Facebook page. And Kristen, thank you so much for being.
Thank you, and stay safe, everybody. Stay safe.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
We appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.